You may know the rose as a symbol of love and beauty, but did you know that the humble rose is the chosen flower of goddesses' secret society and is also full of health benefits for the body? Grab a cozy beverage and join me for an amazing and informative deep dive on the rose. Hi, my name is Jessica, and this is my Apothecary. Welcome back to my channel if you are returning, and thank you for being here. Please remember to click the like button and to subscribe to this channel for more videos like this one, and so that other people can learn about the healing benefits of plants. The rose is full of beautiful benefits for our mind and body, but in order to fully understand this plant, we have to look at its history and mythology. The story of the rose is one of divinity, passion, and secrecy. The rose was first cultivated in China about 5,000 years ago, but there is fossilized evidence to show that there were many other older cousins of the rose from around 35 billion years ago. From China, the rose spread to the Middle East, where it found its way into Egypt, into the tombs, as part of the mummification and funerary process. And this is something that we still do today. With roses, we use them often to honor the dead. And similarly, Egyptians also did this to honor the deceased and placed the roses on top of their tombs. The rose was connected to Isis as a symbol of the divine feminine, with Isis representing motherhood, creativity, and resurrection. And this is a theme that happens throughout history in the symbolism of the rose. Even though we associate the lotus flower as being one of the more used flowers in Egyptian history, during the Hellenistic period, the rose was a symbol of secrecy and divine knowledge that was passed down to mortals. The Egyptians weren't the only ancient people who celebrated the rose. Greek and Roman mythology is full of rose symbolism. We have the goddesses Venus and Aphrodite, both often being depicted with roses. Aphrodite was often seen crowned with roses on her head, around her wrists and ankles. And we have these beautiful stories about kind of the origin of the rose as well. There's a lovely story about the birth of Venus, and you may have seen the Botticelli painting where Venus is emerging from the seashell, and it is a really beautiful explanation on how roses came to be. As Venus was rising from the ocean, there was some sea foam that bubbled up on the surface, and that sea foam is what became white roses. So because the roses were being born with Venus, the rose is synonymous with that Venus energy of love and creation, fertility, and beauty. There's also a really cute story about Cupid, and you may know Cupid is the little angelic figure that we often see around Valentine's Day with the little bow and arrow. Well, in this story, Cupid fires an arrow into a rose bush completely by accident, but the arrow created a reaction in the rose to produce thorns. And so that is the kind of story of how thorns came to be in the rose, as a way for the rose to protect itself. And this is a really important aspect of the rose, because we can't ignore the fact that roses do have their thorns. And the rose becomes a symbol of self-love and boundaries that are associated with that self-love. Now, there's also a connection between the rose and secrecy or silence. There's another story in which Eros goes to the god of silence, and he's trying to bribe the god of silence into keeping the secrets of Venus about all of her trysts and infidelities. So to bribe this god, he places a rose in front of him. This would later create the phrase sub rosa, meaning to keep a secret. And it does make us think of the rose because the rose has that passionate energy. We can relate to goddesses like Venus and Aphrodite, who often had these very interesting and dramatic love stories. Now, Sub Rosa would go on to be a theme throughout history, the rose being a symbol of silence and secrecy through Freemasonry, Gnosticism, and alchemy, as well as in the Middle Ages, they used to have council rooms, and they would place a rose above the door to symbolize that this council was being held, and as a way to protect the divine mysteries. The rose also contains a lot of magic for our body, and though the rose is a very common symbol and name, not many people know her secrets. Now, the rose's very energetics are calming and soft because we have these beautiful, delicate buds and petals in these beautiful shades, usually of red, of white, but there's even pink and orange and yellow, so many different varieties. And we do associate the rose with heart healing and easing and soothing. And that's really a lot of what it does for our bodies as well. Roses are astringent, cooling, antioxidant, and very nurturing to our skin. Rose soothes any aggravated tissues, and that cooling astringency really helps with certain skin conditions like psoriasis, dermatitis, and of course rosacea. As if you think about the name rosacea, the word rose is in it, and rose is a fabulous ally to work with for rosacea, as it does cool those inflamed tissues and really helps to take that redness out. Rose also helps us to keep the elasticity in our skin, to really keep our moisture levels in our skin as well, and that helps to create more youthful and flexible skin and helps us to keep our skin bright. Rose hips, which are the fruit of the rose, also can help reduce scarring on the skin by 26%. But the rose does much more than this. Not only does the rose relieve stress and ease difficult emotions, but the rose is also very helpful for women's problems, especially during a menstrual cycle when there's a lot of cramping. The rose can really help to ease the pain of the cramping and also just kind of relax the reproductive system and help everything be more regulated. And this makes sense as the rose is such a feminine plant with feminine qualities. Roses belong to the Rosaceae family, but there's a lot of other plants that also belong in this family. And that includes plants like apples, pears, cherries, raspberries. So it's not only roses and flowers, but also these fruiting plants. And a lot of these plants also contain some of the healing properties that rose has. There are over 300 different species of roses, but then we look at the cultivated roses, and there are thousands more of those. And when we work with rose, all roses can be medicinal. So any kind of rose in the Rosaceae family can be used for medicine to make for the skin, to apply to the skin, to make into a tea. However, you want to use only roses that have no pesticides, no chemicals sprayed on them, or anything like that. Make sure that if you are buying roses, you are aware of where you're getting them and how they were grown from seed to plant. And only choose roses that have no chemicals, pesticides, or fertilizers on them. You can also grow rose yourself, so the rose bushes that you have in your yard can be used for medicine. Now, when we make medicine from the rose, this can be done in many different ways. We do have essential oil that you can use as a stress reliever and mood enhancer, also as an aphrodisiac. However, you do want to make sure that you are diluting your essential oil and that the essential oil brand that you are using is true essential oil. So when you use essential oil, you need to have a carrier oil with it to help to reduce some of the strong effects that essential oil can create. So adding some jojoba oil or another good quality oil to your rose can help to make sure that you're not going to irritate your skin with the essential oil. You can also use rose water, which has been an age-old custom that women used to do, especially in the past, taking rose water and kind of applying it to the face or spraying, misting it over the face. And again, that adds in that moisture-loving quality that rose has onto your skin to help your skin really glow and stay hydrated. There's also things like hydrosols and many different other ways you can use rose. Salves are a wonderful way to use rose as well, because you can make some really nice thick salves to add that nurturing quality that rose has to heal the tissues deep within, as well as create a nice barrier. I create a almond rose salve in my shop, and this is really great for chapped skin, winter, dry skin, and also to help those dry, irritated patches of skin. And I will leave the link in the description box below. But we can also use rose internally, and this is something that not many people do. When you first think of rose tea, you might think that that's a bit much in terms of the essential oils of the rose because it's very highly fragrant, and the tannins in the rose can also be a little drying to the mouth and tongue. So it is something to keep in mind. However, there's also ways to kind of balance out the rose's dryness with some other herbs as well. If you're making rose tea, you can boil some water, pour it over some rose petals, steep, and then drink that. You can add honey into your tea to kind of lighten the flavor a little bit and add a little moistening quality with that. You can also add a little bit of licorice root into your tea to help some sweetness be infused into the tea. There's another way to prepare rose tea that can be a little less drying, and that's to take more room temperature water and to infuse the rose petals into the room temperature water. And that doesn't draw out quite as many of the tannins. So that can make it a little less difficult to drink, a little bit more palatable if you don't like it warm. And again, drinking the rose tea is really great for your body, especially during your menstrual cycle or any kind of hormonal changes. So it can be a really nice one to have to really just soothe any kind of irritation, heat in the throat, in the digestive tract, in the reproductive system, and really just feel very nurturing and relaxing. So as you can see, the rose has a fascinating and long history of magic and medicine, and it's really a beautiful plant ally to work with. I hope you found this video informative, enlightening, and interesting. Please don't forget to give this video a like and to subscribe to this channel for more videos like this one, and I will see all of you very, very soon.